They attempted to auction off my $2.4 million cattle ranch while I attended my father's funeral. Returning at dawn after abbreviating the memorial service, I discovered unknown individuals with evaluation forms surveying my property, a massive estate sale banner planted in my front yard, and HOA chairwoman Linda Matthews dialing emergency services to report me for trespassing on land that had belonged to my bloodline for 3 generations. I never consented to their homeowners association. I never granted them an inch of authority. Yet they believed my absence provided sufficient opportunity to seize everything I held dear. They selected the most inappropriate moment and targeted the wrong rancher. What would your response be if your entire inheritance faced public auction? While you mourned 900 miles away? Share your thoughts below, because my subsequent actions transformed their illegitimate sale into complete devastation. My name is Ryan Thompson, and I represent the 3rd generation of livestock ranchers in Wyoming. The 52-acre property I call home has remained in my family since 1965. When my grandfather purchased undeveloped terrain and constructed everything from the ground up, the oak fencing, the livestock barn, even the stone pathway leading to our main entrance. Following my wife Catherine's battle with cancer 2 years prior, only my 17-year-old son Marcus and I continued the family tradition with our 35 head of cattle 3 years ago. Our world shifted dramatically when construction crews built the Willowbrook Estates development directly adjacent to my ranch. Within months, they established a homeowners association and selected Linda Matthews as chairwoman, a former municipal planner who relocated from Seattle with ambitious plans regarding property valuations and neighborhood regulations. Linda represents the type of individual who measures neighboring lawns with measuring tools and issues violation notices for holiday decorations remaining beyond January 5th. The conflict began immediately. First, Linda alleged my oak fencing violated their property boundaries by 20 inches. Next came odor complaints regarding my livestock during warmer months. Finally, she determined my stone road access somehow interfered with their decorative entrance features. Each month delivered fresh demands, new threats, and additional attempts to force my compliance with regulations I never acknowledged or agreed to follow. Last Wednesday, I received the telephone call every son fears my father suffered a severe cardiac event in Montana. I departed immediately, intending to remain the entire week for funeral preparations and estate matters. Marcus stayed with his closest friend's family, and my neighbor Tom Richards agreed to monitor the livestock twice daily. However, Thursday evening, Marcus sent a message that froze my blood. "Dad, you need to return home immediately. Something terrible is happening at the ranch." I drove through the darkness, arriving as sunrise illuminated the mountain range. The first sight greeting me through my gate wasn't the familiar view of cattle feeding. It was 2 gentlemen and costly suits measuring my fence perimeter with professional instruments. An enormous wooden placard dominated my front yard. Willowbrook Estates Community Property Public Auction. I parked my pickup and approached, boots grinding against the gravel my grandfather had spread 55 years earlier. "Excuse me, gentlemen. What precisely are you doing on my property?" The taller gentleman barely glanced up from his documentation. "Sir, we're conducting a pre-sale evaluation. This property is scheduled for public auction this Saturday." "This is my land," I stated, maintaining my composure despite the fury building in my chest. "You're trespassing." That's when the shorter gentleman made his critical error. He sneered and declared, "Sir, we possess legal authorization. Please, don't obstruct our work." I retrieved my phone to contact the sheriff, but before I could dial, the taller gentleman was already making his own call. "We have a situation here," he spoke into his device. "Subject is being aggressive." Within minutes, a silver luxury SUV came racing up my driveway, creating a dust cloud that settled on my grandfather's fence posts. Out stepped Linda Matthews herself, dressed as if attending a corporate meeting instead of stealing someone's ranch at daybreak. "Mr. Thompson," she said with that artificial smile I'd grown to despise, "you're violating a court directive. These gentlemen have complete authority to be here." "A court directive?" I demanded. "This is my property, and I want them removed." Linda's smile disappeared as she retrieved her phone. 911. Yes, I need law enforcement immediately. We have a trespasser threatening our legal evaluation team. 25 minutes later, Deputy Carlos Sanchez arrived in his sheriff's vehicle. I knew Carlos, his son, played football with Marcus, and we'd sat together at numerous school events. He emerged from his car looking genuinely puzzled about why he'd been summoned to my ranch. Linda immediately began her performance. Officer, this man is interfering with a legal property evaluation. We have complete authority to be here under Wyoming statute, Deputy Sanchez said carefully. Can you present your documentation? Linda produced a folder containing official appearing papers. The top document read Notice of Property Forfeiture in bold lettering, signed by something called the Willowbrook Estates Community Authority. According to Linda's paperwork, I owed $52,000 in accumulated penalties and fees for various violations, and my fence encroachment constituted adverse possession reversal. I stared at the document in shock. Carlos, I've never seen this before in my life. I never received any official notice. Ignorance of HOA regulations isn't a defense, Mr. Thompson, Linda said smugly. The certified mail was attempted numerous times. Refusal to accept delivery constitutes legal acknowledgement. I never refused any mail, I protested, pulling out my phone to show Deputy Sanchez my property deed and tax records. This ranch has been in my family for 58 years, Deputy. Sanchez examined both sets of documents, his frown deepening. Ma'am, according to county records, this appears to be Mr. Thompson's property legally. The HOA has statutory authority under Wyoming revised statutes, Linda insisted. Mr. Thompson's fence encroachment triggered our abandonment clause. Owes $52,000 in accumulated penalties. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. $52,000 for what? A fence that had been standing since before Linda was born. Deputy Sanchez looked as confused as I felt. This is clearly a civil matter. I can't arrest anyone without an arrest warrant, and I don't see evidence of any criminal activity. Then remove him from HOA property, Linda demanded, pointing at the disputed fence line. Ma'am, I'm standing on my own land, I said firmly. Deputy. Sanchez shook his head. Without a court order or clear evidence of trespassing, I'm not removing anyone. Both parties need to resolve this through the courts. The auction is Saturday, Linda snapped. This delay is costing us thousands in administrative fees. That's when I noticed something that made my blood boil even hotter. The auction sign wasn't just on my property, it was a full 3 feet inside my fence line, planted in soil my family had been working for decades. Linda, that sign is on my property. Remove it now or I will. Touch that sign and I'll have you. Arrested for vandalism, she threatened. I attempted calling my attorney, Mark Johnson, but got his voicemail saying he was on vacation until Thursday. 2 other attorneys I contacted had no weekend availability. The timing was perfect. Suspiciously perfect. Timing is everything, Mr. Thompson, Linda said with that same smirk. While we argued, the evaluators continued measuring my fence line. With professional equipment, I retrieved my grandfather's original survey from 1965, yellowed with age but still legally binding. According to the survey, my fence was actually 4 feet inside my property line, nowhere near any encroachment. This survey is outdated, the lead evaluator said dismissively. We have an updated survey from 2021 showing clear encroachment. Updated by whom? I demanded. I never authorized any survey of my land. The HOA commissioned a professional survey. To resolve the boundary dispute, Linda said smoothly. That's when my neighbor Tom Richards pulled up in his weathered Chevrolet pickup, dust trailing behind him like a war banner. Tom was 75 years old and had been surveying land for the county before he retired. If anyone knew where my fence belonged, it was Tom. Ryan, I tried calling you, Tom said, climbing out of his truck with the stiffness of a man who'd worked with his hands his whole life. These people were here yesterday too, measuring and taking photographs. Sir, this is private HOA business, Linda said coldly. Tom laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Lady, I've lived here 42 years. That fence hasn't moved an inch since Ryan's. Grandfather built it. Several neighbors had started emerging from the subdivision, drawn by the commotion. Some looked supportive of Linda, Others seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation. Mrs. Chen, whose cat I'd rescued from my cattle pond twice, avoided making eye contact. Two neighbors I didn't recognize started taking videos with their phones. "Please, document everything," Linda told them. "We need evidence of his obstruction." That's when Deputy Sanchez provided the first piece of good news I'd heard all morning. "Ma'am, under Wyoming law, adverse possession requires 20 years of continuous occupation. If this fence has been here for 58 years, well before your subdivision existed, then Mr. Thompson's original property deed would take precedence over any newer HOA covenants. The legal principle was simple. Prior existing use supersedes subsequent covenant restrictions. My grandfather's fence had legal priority over Linda's power trip, but Linda wasn't backing down. We'll see what the emergency board meeting decides. This afternoon, at 2:30 sharp, Linda called an emergency HOA board meeting at her house. Despite being the property owner most affected by their decisions, I wasn't invited. I showed up anyway. "This is a private meeting," Linda said when I knocked on her front door. "You're not an HOA member. I'm the property owner you're trying to steal from," I replied. "I have a right to defend myself." The board consisted of 5 people. Linda as chairwoman, Dr. Michael Foster as vice chairman, Rebecca Torres as secretary, David Wu as treasurer, and Sharon Kelly as member-at-large. What I discovered later was that Rebecca Torres worked for Linda's real estate company. Dr. Foster had invested $60,000 in Linda's business. The fix was in from the start. I presented my evidence methodically. The original 1965 property deed, with survey, continuous tax payment records, and my grandfather's handwritten notes documenting the fence installation. "These are old documents," Linda dismissed. "Current law applies." "According to whose survey?" I demanded. "I never agreed to any survey of my property." Linda produced her professional survey dated April 2021, signed by someone named Samuel Rodriguez from High Plains Land Services. I'd never heard of either the company or the surveyor. "I want to contact this surveyor directly," I said. "That's not necessary. Survey is certified," Linda replied quickly. Dr. Foster read from the HOA covenant. "Any encroachment onto common area constitutes abandonment of property rights." According to their interpretation, I had constructively abandoned the disputed strip of land, which then reverted to HOA authority. Rebecca Torres produced meeting minutes from 2020, claiming I had been properly notified and failed to respond. I had never received any notification about meetings regarding my property. "Maybe we should postpone until legal counsel reviews everything. I've already contacted Mountain Security for the auction," Linda announced. "Given Mr. Thompson's hostile behavior, we need professional security." I asked Sharon Kelly, the only board member who seemed to have a conscience, spoke up. "Linda, maybe we should reconsider this whole we're proceeding as planned." Linda cut her off. That's when I learned about Wyoming Revised Statute 3420116. HOAs cannot claim ownership of property through covenant violations alone. Actual abandonment requires clear intent and physical vacation of property. I had continuously occupied, maintained, and paid taxes on my entire property for decades. The smoking gun came when I demanded to see all correspondence they claimed to have sent me. Linda produced emails sent to r.thompson.ranch@yahoo.com. But my actual email was ryan.t.ranch@gmail.com. They had the wrong address. "Typographical errors don't invalidate proper notice," Linda argued. "Never verified my contact information," I pointed out. "How was that proper notice?" Tom Richards, who had followed me to the meeting, confirmed he'd never seen any surveyors on my property. I would have noticed strangers with measuring equipment. "Are you a licensed surveyor?" Dr. Foster asked. "Retired." "County surveyor, still licensed," Tom replied. "And that fence is exactly where it's always been." When the vote came, it was predetermined. Linda, Dr. Foster, and Rebecca Torres voted yes to proceed with the auction. David Wu abstained, and Sharon Kelly voted no. The motion passed 3-1-1. "You're about to make a serious legal error," I warned them. "We'll see about that," Linda replied. Sunday. Morning brought an even bigger shock. Linda was hosting a pre-auction viewing of my property. 3 potential buyers showed up to tour the ranch I had inherited from my grandfather, led by Linda herself pointing out development potential. I sat on my front porch with my morning coffee, watching strangers walk around my land like they owned it. Every time potential buyers approached the house, I stood up and introduced myself politely. "Hi, I'm Ryan Thompson. I own this ranch. Are you interested in buying stolen property?" The first buyer, a Denver developer in an expensive suit, left immediately after talking to me. The second buyer, a young couple, seemed torn between Linda's sales pitch and my warnings. The third was a real estate investor who started asking Linda detailed questions about title insurance. "Ma'am, I'll need to see clear title before I consider bidding," the investor said. Linda struggled to answer his technical questions, finally saying, "All legal documentation will be provided at the auction." My neighbor across the street, Alex Martinez, had been filming everything from his bedroom window. Alex was 25 years old and ran a YouTube channel called Mountain Truth, with 52,000 subscribers. "Ryan, this is insane," Alex said, jogging over with his camera. "I'm posting this online." I was initially reluctant, but after seeing Linda's auction flyers posted around the subdivision, I agreed to let Alex document what was happening. That Sunday evening, Alex went live on YouTube with the title "Corrupt HOA Trying to Steal Neighbor's Ranch." The live stream attracted 925 viewers in the first hour, with comments flooding in from across the country supporting my fight. By Monday evening, local news reporter Jennifer Kim from Channel 12 had called asking for interviews. When she contacted Linda for comment, Linda initially agreed, then changed her mind. Dr. Foster refused to speak with reporters entirely. Channel 12 ran the story. Monday night, HOA ranch seizure sparks legal questions. Meanwhile, my son Marcus had been doing research of his own. He discovered that Wyoming requires specific permits for property auctions. "Dad, they don't have legal authority to hold an auction," Marcus told me. I called the county clerk's office Tuesday morning and confirmed Marcus's research. The clerk explained that Wyoming law requires a 45-day advance permit for property auctions, and the permit must include proof of ownership or legal authority. "Sir, they can't legally hold an auction without proper permits," the clerk confirmed. But Linda doubled down on her scheme. She hired mountain security for auction day, 3 armed guards, a patrol car, and traffic barriers. When I confronted the security supervisor, he looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we're just here to maintain order," he said. "What if I told you this property isn't legally theirs to auction?" I asked. The supervisor promised to review their contract with the HOA. All property auctions in Wyoming require state-issued permits under revised statute 153401. The permits must include proof of legal ownership or a court order. Unlicensed property auctions constitute fraudulent business practices. Takeaway: always verify auction permits before bidding on any property. The neighborhood was splitting into factions. The community forum exploded with arguments between pro-Ryan and pro-Linda residents. Several neighbors came forward with their own stories of HOA harassment under Linda's leadership. Mrs. Chen finally spoke up. "Linda tried to fine me $1,800 for planting sunflowers in my front yard. I contacted the Wyoming Bar Association for an emergency referral and got the name of Maria Rodriguez, a property rights attorney who specialized in exactly these kinds of cases. This sounds like actionable fraud," Maria told me over the phone. "I can meet with you Wednesday morning." Tuesday night, Linda sent me a certified letter demanding I vacate the property by Friday. Claiming continued trespass, violated a restraining order I'd never heard of. When I called Maria Rodriguez's office, her assistant confirmed that no restraining order had been filed in my name. "Mr. Thompson, someone is lying to you about court orders," Maria said. Wednesday morning's meeting with attorney Maria Rodriguez changed everything. Maria was a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in property rights cases, and she'd seen enough HOA fraud to recognize it immediately. "Ryan, bring me every document you've received from this HOA," she said, spreading papers across her conference table like a detective investigating a crime scene. As Maria examined the paperwork, expression grew increasingly grim. Finally, she looked up with a mixture of anger and excitement. "Ryan, I don't think this HOA has any legal authority over your property whatsoever." Maria pulled out the original subdivision plat from 2018, which clearly showed HOA boundaries that excluded my pre-existing ranch property. The developer agreement specifically stated, "Pre-existing properties retain full autonomy. Your land was intentionally excluded from HOA jurisdiction," Maria explained. "They have zero legal authority over your property." A smoking gun came when Maria discovered that Linda had filed an amended covenant extension in 2020, claiming to extend HOA authority over adjacent properties. But the extension was never approved by the County Planning Commission, and it was never signed by affected property owners. "Ryan, this is a fraudulent document. Linda forged your consent." I remembered my grandfather telling stories about negotiating with the original developer back in 2017. Grandpa had been adamant about maintaining independence from any homeowners association, found his handwritten notes tucked inside the family Bible, detailed records of his meeting with the developer, who promised the ranch would never be subject to HOA interference. Maria made some phone calls and uncovered even more damning evidence. The original developer had sent an email to the county planner stating, "Thompson Ranch property must remain exempt from all HOA authority. The county's planning approval specifically excluded my ranch from HOA jurisdiction." "Ryan, you have ironclad legal protection," Maria said. "This HOA never had any right to regulate your property." But the fraud went deeper. Maria contacted the surveyor whose name appeared on Linda's boundary survey, Samuel Rodriguez of High Plains Land Services. "I never surveyed any property for Willowbrook Estates HOA," Rodriguez told Maria over speakerphone. "That signature is forged." Rodriguez was furious. "This is identity theft. I'm filing criminal charges immediately." Maria's investigation into Linda's business revealed the financial motive behind the fraud. Linda's real estate company had an exclusive listing agreement for my ranch property, which would net her a $160,000 commission on a forced sale. Dr. Foster's wife also worked for Linda's company. "This is a criminal conspiracy for financial gain," Maria concluded. Within hours, Maria had filed an emergency injunction to stop Saturday's auction and requested a criminal investigation for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. She also filed complaints with the district attorney's office and the state real estate commission. "We're not just stopping the auction, Ryan. We're ending their entire scheme." Thursday morning, my kitchen transformed into a war room. Maria Rodriguez spread legal documents across my dining table, while Tom Richards, Alex Martinez, and surveyor Samuel Rodriguez gathered around like generals planning a battle. "We have 48 hours to build an airtight case," Maria announced, pointing to a timeline she'd drawn on my whiteboard. The evidence was overwhelming. My original 1965 property deed, the 2017 developer agreement excluding my ranch county planning, approval with exemption clause, the forged survey with stolen signature, and Linda's real estate listing showing her financial motive. "This is the most solid property rights case I've ever seen," Maria said with satisfaction. We assembled our expert witnesses. Tom, as a retired county surveyor who could testify about original boundaries, Samuel Rodriguez, whose signature was forged, RETIRED property attorney Robert Sullivan, who understood HOA law, County Clerk Lisa Martinez, who could confirm missing auction permits, and even James Torres, the original subdivision developer, and Rebecca, Torres's ex-husband. Maria had discovered that Linda never filed a proper lien against my property. Wyoming law requires a specific legal process for property liens, and Linda's $52,000 fine had no legal foundation. She can't just declare someone owes money without due process, Maria explained. The case was so clear-cut that Maria contacted the FBI's white-collar crime division. The pattern of fraud, forged documents, identity theft, and conspiracy potentially crossed federal jurisdiction lines. FBI. Agent Williams agreed to investigate after reviewing our evidence. "This appears to be systematic fraud," he confirmed. Alex. Coordinated media strategy, reaching out to larger YouTube channels for coverage. The Legal Eagle channel agreed to analyze the case, and local news stations were requesting interviews. Stay factual, stay calm, let the evidence speak, Maria advised. Meanwhile, the community was mobilizing. The Save Ryan's Ranch group formed. On the community forum, with 142 neighbor signatures supporting me, Mrs. Chen revealed that Linda had threatened her with a $4,500 fine for her garden, and for other homeowners came forward with similar harassment stories. Marcus's research revealed that Linda's real estate company was nearly bankrupt and desperately needed the commission from my ranch sale. The financial motive for fraud became crystal clear. Maria filed emergency restraining orders against the HOA and coordinated with the sheriff's office to prevent fraud. Alex planned to live stream the entire confrontation. We turned their auction into their downfall, Maria said. Under Wyoming's Consumer Protection Act, fraudulent real estate practices carry criminal penalties. Identity theft, like forging Rodriguez's signature, is a federal crime. Conspiracy to commit fraud can result in 7-year sentences. Takeaway: white-collar crime prosecution requires a clear paper trail. We had one. Our backup plans covered every contingency, emergency injunction to stop the auction legally, sheriff's arrest of Linda for fraud, public exposure destroying Linda's business, or federal charges ending the scheme permanently. We're not just winning, Maria told me. We're making sure this never happens to anyone else. Thursday evening, I called Marcus at his friend's house. Son, this might get ugly tomorrow. Are you ready? Dad, Grandpa didn't raise quitters. Neither did you. Tom Richards clapped me on the shoulder. Ryan, your grandfather would be proud. Tomorrow we restore justice, Maria said with quiet confidence. That night, Maria's subpoenas had uncovered Linda's email trail, showing premeditation and conspiracy. One email to Dr. Foster read, "Once we get Thompson's land, we split the profit." His reply, "Are you sure this is legal?" Alex's latest video had reached 925,000 views with 96% positive comments from across America. Stand your ground. Ryan? As I sat on my porch that Thursday evening, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Tomorrow, we'd find out what justice looked like. Friday morning brought panic to Linda's camp when she received Maria Rodriguez's emergency injunction filing. Linda called an emergency HOA board meeting for 7:30 a.m., a desperate attempt to move the auction forward. "We need to hold the auction today," Linda told her remaining board members. "Linda, we can't change the auction date now," Dr. Foster protested. "People have made plans, can do whatever we want." "I'm the chairwoman," Linda snapped. Her own attorney, David Pierce, called with bad news. "Linda, this injunction is serious. You could face criminal charges." "You said the covenant extension was legal?" Linda reminded him. "I said it might be." "Legal. This is completely different," Pierce replied, before withdrawing as her attorney effective immediately. Linda frantically tried to cover her tracks, ordering Rebecca Torres to delete incriminating emails from the HOA server. "Linda, deleting emails could be obstruction of justice," Rebecca warned. "Rebecca, your job depends on this," Linda threatened. But Rebecca had already forwarded copies of everything to her personal email account. In desperation, Linda offered County Clerk Lisa Martinez $6,000 to backdate an auction permit. "Ma'am, that's attempted bribery," the clerk said, secretly recording the conversation on her phone. The clerk immediately contacted the sheriff's office, which opened a criminal investigation. When Mountain Security reviewed the legal documents Maria had filed, they canceled their contract immediately. "Ma'am, we can't provide security for potentially illegal activities," the supervisor explained. "You're in breach of contract," Linda screamed. "Better than being accessories to fraud," he replied. The HOA board was crumbling. David Wu resigned via email, and Sharon Kelly demanded an emergency vote to halt the auction entirely. "Maybe we should postpone this whole thing," Dr. Foster said, finally showing some sense. We're past the point of no return, Linda insisted. Rebecca. Torres secretly recorded the entire meeting. Friday afternoon, 4 news vans arrived at the subdivision. Channel 12, Fox 29, and Denver 7 were all running stories about the attempted ranch seizure. Linda refused interviews and hid in her house while Dr. Foster gave a disastrous interview. No comment. But we're legally justified, he told Channel 12. Even if the surveyor says his signature was forged, a reporter pressed. That forged signature? Dr. Foster stammered, realizing he'd been kept in the dark about key details. Alex's live stream. Friday evening peaked at 15,000 viewers with comments pouring in from across the country. Weekly experts in the chat were explaining fraud implications. 2 viewers and donations were flooding in for my legal defense. This is bigger than just Ryan's ranch now, Alex told his audience. Friday afternoon, FBI agent Williams interviewed me at the ranch, asking for complete documentation of Linda's scheme. Mr. Thompson, this appears to be systematic fraud, Agent Williams confirmed. We're opening a federal investigation. Samuel Rodriguez filed criminal complaints for identity theft, and his attorney threatened a $600,000 lawsuit against the dissolved HOA. Rodriguez agreed to testify Saturday if needed. I've been a surveyor for 27 years, Rodriguez told Alex's camera. This is the most outrageous fraud I've ever seen. Using email to perpetrate fraud falls under the federal wire fraud statute, crossing federal jurisdiction. Identity theft for financial gain carries mandatory sentencing guidelines. Conspiracy charges can be filed against all participants. Takeaway. Federal fraud prosecution has a 97% conviction rate. Friday evening. Willowbrook Estate split into warring factions. Pro-Ryan signs appeared in 28 yards, while only 6 displayed pro-Linda signs. Several residents posted fire Linda signs, and a civil war was brewing. Regardless of the auction outcome, the sheriff's office reviewed all evidence Friday evening and prepared for potential arrests. Sheriff, this looks like clear fraud, Deputy Sanchez reported. We'll have units on scene tomorrow, Sheriff Martinez confirmed. Be prepared to make arrests. In a final desperate move, Linda contacted 3 private investigators to dig up dirt on my family. They found nothing. My record was spotless. Ma'am, this man is a model citizen, the lead investigator told her. Rebecca Torres provided the FBI with a complete email archive showing Linda had planned the ranch seizure for 8 months. The emails documented systematic fraud against multiple homeowners, with Dr. Foster's financial investment in Linda's company clearly showing the conspiracy. I can't be part of this anymore, Rebecca told Agent Williams. Friday night. My ranch house became a gathering point for supporters. Tom Richards, Alex Martinez, Maria Rodriguez, and a dozen neighbors showed up throughout the evening. Ryan, we're ready for tomorrow, Maria said with quiet confidence. Let's go get my land back, I replied. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold, with frost covering the pasture grass that crunched under our boots. By 6:30 a.m., my supporters had gathered at the ranch. Maria Rodriguez, with her briefcase full of legal ammunition. Tom Richards carrying his surveying equipment. Alex Martinez with professional camera gear, and Samuel Rodriguez with documentation. Proving his signature had been forged, 20-8 neighbors from the subdivision joined us, along with 5 news crews setting up cameras. Sheriff's deputies positioned themselves strategically around the property. Whatever happens today, we tell the truth, told the gathered crowd. At 7:30 a.m. sharp, Linda arrived in her silver luxury SUV with Dr. Foster riding passenger. Behind them came 2 men in tactical gear from something called Patriot Defense Services, unlicensed security that looked more like intimidation than protection. Ryan, those aren't real security, Maria whispered. They're here to scare people. By 8:30 a.m., 72 people had gathered at my ranch entrance, a mix of supporters, curious neighbors, potential bidders, and media. Alexa's live stream was broadcasting to 22,000 viewers across the country, with news helicopters circling overhead, like mechanical vultures. Linda looked increasingly panicked as the crowd grew, her earlier confidence evaporating in the morning sunlight. At 9 a.m., Maria approached Linda with the emergency injunction papers. Ms. Matthews, "You are legally required to halt this auction," Maria announced loud enough for the cameras to hear. "I don't recognize your authority," Linda replied defiantly. "This is a court order, not a request," Maria said calmly. In an act of desperation that sealed her fate, Linda tore up the injunction papers in front of rolling news cameras. Sheriff Martinez arrived with 5 deputies at exactly 9:30 a.m. He examined Maria's injunction carefully before addressing Linda directly. "Ma'am, this is a valid court order. You need to comply." "Sheriff, this man is trespassing on HOA property," Linda insisted. "Ma'am, according to county records, this is his property," Sheriff Martinez replied firmly. That's when Samuel Rodriguez stepped forward to confront Linda publicly. "Ma'am, you forged my signature on that survey," Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "I don't know what you're talking about," Linda stammered. "I'm a licensed surveyor with 27 years of experience," Rodriguez continued. "That's not my signature, and I've never worked for your HOA." The crowd gasped. Audibly, news cameras zoomed in, and Linda's face went pale as the walls closed in around her. At 9:45 a.m., 2 black SUVs pulled up to the ranch entrance. FBI agent Williams and his partner stepped out, their presence transforming the atmosphere from tense to electric. "It's Ms. Matthews, we need to speak with you about federal fraud charges," Agent Williams announced. "I'm busy conducting legal business," Linda replied, her voice cracking. "Ma'am, this is about federal fraud charges. Please step over here." Dr. Foster immediately began backing away from Linda, finally realizing the depth of her criminal behavior. Rebecca Torres arrived carrying her laptop, walking directly to the FBI agents. "I have all the emails showing this was planned for months," Rebecca announced to the stunned crowd. She opened her laptop and showed Agent Williams the email thread where Linda wrote, "Once we get Thompson's land, we're set for life." Rebecca, "You're violating attorney-client privilege," Linda screamed. "I'm not your attorney, Linda. I'm your victim," Rebecca replied. At 10:15 a.m., Linda made her final desperate play. She climbed onto a makeshift podium and attempted to start the auction without a licensed auctioneer. "This auction will proceed as scheduled," Linda shouted. "Ma'am, step down." "This auction is halted by court order," Sheriff Martinez commanded. "You have no authority here," Linda screamed back. That's when Agent Williams produced the federal arrest warrant. "Linda Matthews, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and attempted property theft. This is harassment." "I know my rights," Linda shrieked, as the handcuffs clicked into place. "You have the right to remain silent," Agent Williams said calmly. "I suggest you use it." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause that echoed across the valley. Dr. Foster, seeing Linda in handcuffs, immediately approached Agent Williams. "Agent, I want to cooperate fully," Foster said. "Linda told me the survey was legitimate. I invested money, but I didn't know it was fraud." "Sir, we'll need a complete statement," Agent Williams replied. The 2 Patriot Defense Guards, realizing they were about to become accessories to federal crimes, quickly removed their tactical gear and distanced themselves from Linda. "Ma'am, we're just here for crowd control," one guard told the sheriff. "Gentlemen, you're not licensed for security work in this county," Sheriff Martinez informed them. They left immediately. News crews captured Linda's arrest live while Alex's live stream peaked at 52,000 viewers. Comments exploded with support for me in celebration of justice. Channel 12 cut to live coverage. Breaking: HOA chairwoman arrested for fraud. Neighbors who had supported Linda began apologizing to me directly. "Ryan, I'm so sorry," Mrs. Chen said with tears in her eyes. "Linda threatened to fine me if I didn't support her." "Mrs. Chen, you were scared." "I understand completely," I replied. Former Linda supporters openly expressed their anger about being deceived and manipulated. Finally, I walked over to the estate sale sign that had started this whole nightmare. "Sheriff, can I remove this from my property now?" I asked. "It's your land, Mr. Thompson," Sheriff Martinez said with a slight smile. I grabbed the wooden sign and pulled it out of the ground soil that had belonged to my family for 58 years. The crowd cheered as I broke the sign over my knee, the crack echoing like a gunshot across the ranch. Sheriff Martinez stepped up onto my front porch steps. his voice carrying across the crowd of 250 people now gathered on my land. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm holding a federal arrest warrant," he announced, the morning air so still.